Hello, everybody, and welcome to Week 12 predictions for the NFL. Only 13 games to go over this week, the shortest so far this season. Before we dive right into it, I want to quickly say subscribe if you're new, be greatly appreciated. Leave a like while you're at it as well, trying to get to 300 subscribers by the end of the year. So, kick things off. So, Thursday night football between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers are 8-2 and 3.5-point favorites. The Browns sit at 2-8. The Steelers had a really nice win against Baltimore the previous week. Yes, the offense didn't score any touchdowns, but the defense played incredibly well, and that is a theme of the Steelers. Is they're a defensive-minded team that just pretty much has the idea of play the field position battle, and eventually the offense will do enough. In this case, last week it was getting into field goal range. Meanwhile, Cleveland, a really bad loss to the Saints the previous week. Taysom Hill ran all over them. And that's kind of what I'm thinking for this game. Because we're going to see Najee Harris have a great game, I'm assuming. We're going to see Russ be able to throw it around the field a bit more because that's just like how Derek Carr did. The Browns' passing defense isn't the greatest. I am curious, though, because similarly to how the Steelers seem to have the Ravens number at times, Cleveland has had moments of the past of that being the case, but for the most part, not really. I'm curious what this is going to look at. This is the second divisional game for the Steelers this season. I have them winning it. And the Steelers, all of a sudden, after this what was kind of a lackluster offseason, they are in a prime position now that they have competent quarterback play. So I have them winning this. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings at 8-2 and 3-point favorites make the trip to Chicago, who are 4-6. The Vikings have had a pretty weird past few weeks. They're winning games, but not in the way you kind of expecting from them based on how they played earlier on in the season. But looking back at it, this is kind of the style of play I thought they were going to be getting from Minnesota earlier on, a team that wins games through grit and not necessarily has these splash offensive performances. They play Chicago this week, who had a very tough loss against Green Bay the previous week with the blocked kick and everything. I really don't know how this game is going to fully unfold. I just know that Minnesota's defense is a top tier defense in the league. Meanwhile, Chicago is in a very weird spot with a very questionable future because who knows how much longer Matt Eberflus has as the head coach there. And honestly, one more loss to a divisional opponent might just be the nail in the coffin. So we'll see. But I do have Minnesota winning this game purely off the back of that defense, and because I feel like that even if this ends up being a game that is very low scoring and the offense doesn't get enough going, the defense is going to make a play. Andrew Van Ginkel is playing phenomenally this season. Harrison Smith is still a fantastic safety and is going to be a Hall of Famer when everything's all said and done. So I do think that Minnesota's defense, if anything, will get enough done to give Minnesota the win in this one. Next up, the Detroit Lions at 9-1 and 7.5-point favorites make the trip to Indianapolis, who are 5-6. Indianapolis had a pretty good win against the Jets last week. I would say they came out to an early lead, lost the lead, but worked their way back thanks to Anthony Richardson playing well with his legs. The thing is, they're playing the Detroit Lions this week, who are an incredible team. They are the team to beat in the NFL, it feels like. And this is going to be another game that they're going to be able to showcase it because the Lions do not go down easy, and they're going to put up a fight no matter the situation. And even if they do get down in this game at some point, I don't think it will be enough to where it's unsurmountable. So I do have the Lions winning this one with what will most likely be a pretty dominant showing. Next up, the New England Patriots at 3-8 travel to the Miami Dolphins, who are 4-6 and 7-point favorites. The Patriots had I won't say a bad loss to the Rams the previous week, but it also isn't just what you were kind of expecting, especially how the Rams played the week prior against Miami. But the thing with the Patriots is this is a developmental year for a lot of their younger guys, including Drake May, of which this is Drake May's first matchup against the Dolphins in his career. Hoping to try and change the tide. Tua Tagovailoa undefeated against the Patriots in his career. Miami looking to sweep the Pats in back-to-back seasons for the first time since before Tom Brady got there. And this is a big-time game for the Dolphins. They need to win this one. They need to rattle off these wins. They can't afford another loss in conference if they want to try and make the playoffs. So this is a big-time game in Miami. Dolphins won their first meeting thanks to thanks to, I believe it's Jalen Polk not getting a foot in bounds. So I do have Miami winning this one again. I am a Dolphin fan. But Miami's offense has also been playing incredibly well. Since the second half against the Rams, every single drive has been a scoring drive, basically. Yeah, they had that one drive to end the first half against the Raiders, but that's not really a proper drive, as it didn't end with any kind of punt, interception, turnover, score, or anything. Just the end of the half, so it doesn't fully count towards all that. But Miami's offense playing incredibly well, defense playing incredibly well. I do have the Dolphins winning this one. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 4-6 and 5.5-point favorites make the trip out to the New York Giants. Tommy DeVito getting a start in New York. Will be interesting to see what kind of spark this brings to a team who's 2-8 and had much higher expectations going into this season. But there's a reason that they're starting Tommy DeVito and not Drew Lock. There's two main reasons. One is they don't want to pay Drew Lock the incentives, it seems, as there is a percentage of snaps incentives on that contract. The other reasoning is the fact that the Giants want to lose. This is a good QB class for them to get a replacement to Daniel Jones, as it seems like they are eyeing either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. Meanwhile, Tampa, they're seeing how Atlanta played the previous weeks, and they're like, this division is still ours. They can still win this division. They need to start rattling off some wins, though, and it's a great start for that. They're going to get healthier beginning this week, or if not next week, because I believe Mike Evans is slated to come back in very, very shortly. So that's going to be a massive addition for this late season push. I do have Tampa winning this game in New York, in part because the Buccaneers are still a good team, even with the injuries. They nearly beat the Chiefs. The Buccaneers are a good team. They just need to hold strong and win this one, and hope to get Mike Evans back soon. You have Tampa win it. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys at 3-7 make the trip to the nation's capital. They play the Washington Commanders, who are 7-4 and 10.5-point favorites. Both teams coming off of a loss the previous week, but the style of loss is vastly, vastly different. For Dallas, there's going to be massive change in the offseason. There's no doubt in my mind about it. This is definitely not the kind of season that they were expecting. This was supposed to be the all-in year for Dallas, and it's just anything but that. My main question is, what is going to happen with Dak Prescott? But that'll be something I talk about more in the offseason when there's more of those rumors coming about. But Cooper Rush is still slated to get the start, as Jerry Jones said that he has no intentions of playing Trey Lance, which I'm very curious about, because I feel like at some point you need to give him a shot in this offense. But maybe the thought process is you're not going to have this offense for too much longer, so wait a year until he gets playing time. We'll see. Meanwhile, Washington on a 2-game skid, looking to bounce back after a tough loss to the Steelers, followed up by a really bad loss on Thursday Night Football to the Eagles in a game that they had plenty of opportunities, but just threw so many of them away. This is a game they can't afford to throw away those opportunities. They need to win this one, trying to catch up to Philly in the division again. But I do have the Commanders winning this game. I just think it's a case where they played back-to-back really tough opponents, and now that they're playing a team like Dallas, who is 100% the case that Dallas and Mike McCarthy has lost the locker room and they're looking towards next season, they should be able to take advantage and get a big-time win. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs, after facing their first loss in the season last week, they travel to the Carolina Panthers as 10.5-point favorites. Panthers are 3-7, coming off of their bye week, in what was a pretty uneventful bye week for the Panthers, I feel like most people didn't even realize they were on a bye. But here's the thing, there was a lot of talk about this game before the Chiefs, because it was the case, how funny would it be if the Chiefs' first loss comes against the Panthers? Well, it didn't. It came against the Bills the week prior, meaning the Panthers are going to get a very, very angry Chiefs team looking to prove themselves again. And they're going to need a dominant victory to do it. I do have the Chiefs winning, but I will say this, I don't think it will be as dominant as it probably should be. And what I mean by as dominant as it should be, this should be a 30-plus point win for the Chiefs. We will see if it is around that range, but it is going to be a Chiefs win nonetheless, because they're looking to kill the Panthers after all the discussions this previous week. So give me the Chiefs. Next up, the Tennessee Titans at 2-8 travel to Houston, who are 7-4 and 8.5-point favorites. Houston made the claim with their win against Dallas the previous week that they are the team in Texas, and they're looking to prove it. They're still looking to win the division this year. They broke their losing streak and their skid with that win against Dallas. Now looking to build off of it. They get Tennessee, who I feel like still could be a sneakily tough team to beat for Houston. But at the same time, the Texans, again, they got a much needed win. Not in the dominant factor you would have liked to see, but it was still a big time win that they won by 24 points. And Joe Mixon had himself a great game. TJ Stroud didn't do nearly as much as I kind of would have hoped he would have done. But to be fair, Dallas, for as bad as they are, still have a relatively good secondary. So we'll give him that. This would be a good test for Stroud to see if he can beat up against a secondary that he should beat up against. But I do have the Texans winning. In the case of Tennessee's season is in a weird spot, and they're going to be in a fantastic situation in the offseason to add to this team that, again, already has some good talent on there. They're just missing a few pieces here and there, but they need to keep losing in order to do it. So I do have the Houston Texans winning this one. Next up, the Denver Broncos at 6-5 and 5.5 point favorites make the trip to Las Vegas, who are 2-8. The Broncos, a fantastic win against the Falcons this previous week. That was a beautiful win for Denver and for that fan base after the tough loss to Kansas City the week prior. Now the Raiders, coming off of a loss to the Dolphins that wasn't the greatest of games that they've played. The first half was pretty solid. They scored on every drive, but they just could not finish drives until the second half when they started finishing drives a bit more. Started relying on Brock Bowers a lot and nearly made this a great game, but things slipped away quickly as Miami's defense stepped up in the second half when they needed to, mainly in that fourth quarter. I do think the Raiders have the talent to be a really good team, but I don't know when it will actually show up because who knows how much longer Max Crosby is going to be there. It is clear that he is unhappy in Vegas. So we'll see how much more. I'm not saying that he's completely zoned out of anything. I'm sure he's still putting in all of his effort. But it is also clear that he might be looking towards the offseason where he's going to be hopefully be getting traded, at least in his mind. Meanwhile, Denver, again, fantastic win against Atlanta, looking to build off of it. They currently hold the 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture, looking to hang on to it for a little bit longer. I do have the Broncos winning. I think Bo Nix has a pretty solid game. But I do think this will be a pretty close game. Nonetheless, Denver will sneak away with the win. Next up, the San Francisco 49ers at 5-5 make the trip to Green Bay, who are 7-3 and 2.5 point favorites. Here's the thing with Green Bay. Yes, that was a bad win against the Bears, and they've had some really questionable games so far this season, but they've also had some really phenomenal games. And this is a chance for them to exercise some demons a bit. The past few years, the Niners have been their kryptonite, at least when it comes to the playoffs. They have been their kryptonite. So if the Packers get a win here and pretty much firmly knock San Francisco out of playoff hopes, it seems, for this season, that'll be a big-time thing for that team heading into Thanksgiving. But San Francisco is in a very, very weird spot. They're pretty much playing for their seasons at this point at 5-5, but at the same time, the division, how that's shaping up, or whatever. CMC has not been having the impact I thought he was going to, but this is a good time for CMC to have that impact. The Packers in the past have struggled against the ground, at least against the 49ers, in the way that scheme is set up. This is a good test for both sides, seeing how they're going to handle it. I do have the 49ers, though. Purely because in the past, the Niners have been the kryptonite to the Packers. The same way the Packers have been a kryptonite to the Cowboys, has been the Niners to the Packers themselves. I do have the Niners winning this game. I would not be surprised if the Packers completely prove me wrong, and this looks like a complete idiotic decision. But I do feel like this would be a fantastic game and one that the Niners again need to win to stay in the division hunt. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals at 6-4 make the trip to Seattle, who are 5-5 and 1 point favorites. I don't understand how Seattle is favored in this game. Yes, they had a very nice win against the 49ers, beating them for the first time in 3 years the previous week. But Seattle just still has not looked like that good of a team. Meanwhile, Arizona is coming off of their bye week, and in the weeks prior to the bye, They were having one of the best defenses in the league. They were having a fantastic offensive production. They were playing some really, really good football. And I still expect them to be playing really, really good football in Seattle. I do have the Cardinals winning this game. I am still just I am checking. I'm recording this and I do all this and I check the lines during Wednesday evening. So I would not be surprised if this line has moved since then, or is definitely moved by game time. But I currently have it at -1, and Arizona's like, I don't get it. Seattle, for as good of a team as they are, they have glaring weaknesses in a lot of departments, including just the consistency of the offense that Arizona's going to be able to capitalize on. So give me the Cardinals. Sunday night football between the Philadelphia Eagles at 8-2 and 2.5 point favorites make the trip to Los Angeles. They play the Rams, who are 5-5. Eagles, big time win against the Commanders. They got 10 days rest entering this game before making a cross country trip. And the Eagles, since that start to the season, where it was kind of a slow start and everything considered, and kind of how the production was and all that, they have really found a way to turn it around and play some fantastic football. Saquon Barkley is having himself, what honestly is probably going to end up being the best season of his career up to this point. It is, again, really impressive, some really good football. The Rams, they got a big time win, a bounce back win against the Patriots last week after the loss to Miami. That was very weird for the offense. It's going to depend a lot on Philly. Can their defense and can their offense be consistent throughout a full 60? They weren't. I mean, the defense was, but the offense wasn't against the Commanders. Can they withstand this Rams front seven, which is a pretty solid front seven? And can the defense take advantage of the Rams offensive line, which is one of the, I want to say weaker, but it's more so middle of the pack when it comes to offensive line rooms. I expect Saquon to have a solid enough game because the Eagles offensive line is a really good offensive line, but it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I do have the Eagles winning this game. And I feel like for the Eagles to win, they're gonna need Jalen Hurts to be more consistent with his passes a bit more and can't fully rely on Saquon coming up big late. So I do have the Eagles winning this one, assuming all of that takes place. Last up, Monday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens at 7-4 and 3-point favorites make the trip to Los Angeles. They play the Chargers, who are 7-3. This is probably my game of the week. This is a fantastic game. The Ravens looking to bounce back after a tough loss to the Steelers the previous week. The Chargers looking to keep on building what they have built there, which is a really, really fun team that is defensive focused, but Herbert and the offense can make splash plays if needed. Just look at J.K. Dobbins last week on that game-sealing touchdown. The Ravens need this kind of bounce back game. They're playing another really good defense in the Chargers. Hopefully Khalil Mack is back for this game, but we'll obviously see. The Ravens need to have this game. Not just because they need to catch up to the Steelers in the division and everything, but because they need to show it to themselves that they can beat a team like this. It's a fantastic thing. It should be a great game. I expect Derrick Henry to have a pretty solid game. The Chargers' run defense has been a pretty solid run defense this season. They held Chase Brown to 4 yards a carry. They're going to need to hold Henry to less than that, but we'll see. Lamar Jackson, his legs are going to be a threat, and the way he's been passing this season should be MVP caliber numbers, but for some reason he's getting overlooked, in part because, again, now the Ravens are not even leading the division. But Lamar Jackson is my pick for MVP as of right now. And as much as I like what the Chargers are as a team and concept, that second half against Cincy is really scaring me when it comes to the defensive play and the offensive play, so I'm going to pick Baltimore for this one, with the idea that I have no idea when the Chargers are going to pull a charger and just forget how to play football for a half. And if that happens against the Ravens, they won't be able to hold on the same way they did against Cincy. At least I don't think. So give me the Ravens in this one. Well, with all that being said, thank you all for watching. Those are my predictions for Week 12. See you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.